Come on in, Dating God's Way. Kicking it off tonight. We in the studio. Hey, everybody.
Everybody, welcome. Welcome to Dating God's Way.
Welcome. Y'all come on in here. Y'all come on here to this great Dating God's Way on this great night. Hey, Tara. Say hello to us when you come into the room. Say hello.
Hey.
So I can see you. So I can see your face. I can see your name. I can say hi to you. Hey, Michelle, daughter Michelle. Michelle Esquire. Brother Law, what's up, Brother Law?
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Thank you for joining. Yes. Come on in the room. Say hello. Back to the grind. Hey. Come on in here. Come on. So we can get started. Another Tuesday night. We at it again.
Impact. We at it again.
All right. Yeah. Woo. Man, what a week it has been, Pastor.
Oh my goodness. What a week it has been, Pastor Will.
What a week. So quick. We all vaccinated. Me and Pastor E, we all vaccinated. We got our second vaccination on Monday. Thank God. And no real bad side effects. So at least not that we can tell. So I praise the Lord for that. So yes, and somebody asked, or I made a statement today to some people. I said, I don't encourage anybody to get vaccinated. Get vaccinated if you want to get vaccinated or don't. I'm just encourage everybody, if you're vaccinated or not, take all precautions.
That's right.
Because COVID is real. COVID is real.
Yeah.
Let's not be foolish. Take all precautions to stay healthy, to stay safe.
Let's not be foolish or fearful.
Let's not be foolish or fearful. So in all diligence, let's not have an argument of what COVID is and what COVID isn't. We know we have seen COVID deaths, and we know that it's survivors that is highly contagious. So let's do our best to fight this war by being smart.
Yeah, use wisdom. That wisdom be your guide.
Amen. Use that godly wisdom. Amen. And we can see the end of COVID. So, Dating God's Way.
Dating God's Way.
And if you heard me and if you heard that, then I think we're right on topic. Are we hearing the same things? In a relationship, as we start to court, or even at the beginning stage of dating, and then even into marriage, sometimes or many times we talking about communication, because this is our communication series, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes one can be saying one thing and the other can be hearing something else. Or you can be hearing the same thing with two different interpretations.
Wow, yeah.
And if we act on our own interpretation of what we thought we heard, then we find ourselves going in different directions. Because sometimes what we hear is what we want to hear. Is what we want to hear so that we can be right in our doing, based on what we think we heard and what we think the other person didn't hear or heard. And then we can end up going in separate directions, hearing the same thing, but from two different perspectives where we did not hear together.
Yeah.
So is that what we're talking about tonight, Pastor?
That's what we're talking about tonight, Pastor Will. That's it. That's what we're talking about tonight.
So yeah, so I have the of course I have the practical, and Pastor E has the practical and the clinical.
And the spiritual tonight.
The spiritual tonight.
Yeah, but I have both. I do have some data that
Yes.
supports, but also the spiritual tonight as well. I think it's important to put all of it together tonight.
For sure.
So we ready to get into it?
Let's do it. Let's do it. I don't know if we have a lot of time tonight.
Okay, let's get it.
Let's
And
get it.
so so tonight we do have some wisdom that we want to share about the art of listening. That's what Pastor Will started us with last week, the art of listening. And I think one of the things that really stood out for me, just to kind of catch people up, Pastor Will, with where we are.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out to me last week, Pastor Will, is when when we talked about the need for to have assertive feedback, not aggressive, but assertive, and the importance of having assertive feedback,
right?
Or assertive listening, assertive communication with your partner. And I think this gets into our next subject we're going to talk about tonight. Because some people are really afraid. Let's talk about this for a second before we get into tonight fully. Some people are really afraid to communicate.
Afraid to communicate?
Yeah.
Why would somebody be afraid to communicate?
Some people are fearful of communication. Now, I see this not only in couples counseling, because I do, but I see this even in the workplace. So many of you may not know this, but part of my job is HR, human resources. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is training supervisors and managers how to give feedback. And I find that a lot of managers and a lot of employees, they are fearful of giving feedback and receiving feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine that just like at work, that this area can come over to someone's the way that they are in relationships in general. That fear of receiving feedback or giving feedback, that fear is sometimes really steeped in not having the proper skill of knowing how to give feedback, but also the judgments and things that they think may be attached to feedback. So I think that's why some people fear giving feedback or receiving feedback. And I would be interested to hear from our audience today on how are you with giving feedback? Is it something you like doing? Is it something that you don't like doing? Give us some feedback today. Is it something that you kind of like, because this is a good indicator for you if you are getting married or you're in a relationship with the opposite sex. It's good to know where you're starting from.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Pastor Will?
Yeah, I agree. I don't like giving feedback when I feel like the other person isn't listening. Right?
Yeah.
So, or I don't like giving feedback if I don't know. I have different reasons for not giving feedback. I have a lot of reasons for not giving. I'm not. I'm not. It's not that I'm fearful. Sometimes, I can say this. Sometimes, when we talk about, especially like work relationships, I don't want to be the dumb one in the room, right? So I don't give. So sometimes I don't give feedback. Not that I have to be the smartest one in the room. Sometimes I do, but not all the time. I don't want to be the smartest one in the room all the time, but I don't want to be the one that, oh man, did you hear what he said? I don't want to be that person.
Interesting. Okay. So when you're thinking about feedback, you're thinking about kind of the response. You've already thought about the response that you're going to get from the person that's receiving the feedback.
Yeah. Funny is like Cliff Huxtable, when Theo said something and Cliff Huxtable said, son, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. See, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that son. That's not the son I want to be, but that's, but yeah. I think about I play it in my head about what I'm going to say, and then what the response is going to be based on the audience that's around. And so, I probably ran into that with you also, is based on our history or whatever history that we had at the time. No, I'll say it. When I lost my job, I did not want to communicate that I lost my job because your feedback was going to be something I did not want to hear. I did not have control of at the time. So I did not want to tell you. I did not want to communicate or give you feedback on my day.
Yeah.
I didn't want to tell you I was off early because I lost my job.
Yeah. 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 So, it's a, and thinking about the, I remember somebody put in the comments, I just be like, thinking about that, Pastor Will, about the importance of feedback though, because, when we think about feedback, what we're really saying is we're giving someone the opportunity to understand, right? We're giving somebody the opportunity to understand something that either they may not currently understand, or to get insight into us. And so without having feedback, the person that you're communicating with may not be able to understand you, why you do the things you do, how you do the things you do. The person that you are not willing to give feedback to, when you're frustrated with them and you mad with them, they don't even know why.
Yeah.
Because you're unwilling to tell them what is wrong. You're unwilling to give them feedback. You're unwilling to have the conversation. Yeah. And so I do think that, when we're talking about feedback and the art of listening, that often this is the way that we also lose relationships, is because we are too quiet.
Yeah.
What you think about that, Pastor Will? We too quiet. To someone who likes to be quiet.
Right. It's one of those things that they say, holding your tongue is a blessing and a curse sometimes, right? Where being quiet is reserving your opinion, which is really reserving yourself. Is not giving your all, or even half of your all, because you're reserving your feedback. And what you're pretty much doing a lot of times is just waiting for it to blow up. Yeah. You waiting for the consequence.
Yeah.
Being quiet. That's why we sing a song now, a very popular song, that I will not be quiet. I will always worship.
I would not be silent.
I would not be quiet, silent. Hey, interchangeable words. But I would not be silent. And so, but when we are silent, we let things fester. We don't approach things. We don't confront topics that need to be confronted.
Yeah.
Until they blow up. And then we find out, like, my silence was the fuse, really, to allow this to blow up. So, I mean, I'm going off on tangents here, but go ahead, E.
No, I think that's good. I think there is a time to hold your tongue, and there is a time to give feedback. So I do think that that's an important element of our conversation tonight, knowing when to hold your tongue when something is, in a space where it's contentious, and then knowing how to give feedback and how to communicate is what we're talking about tonight, because they're both elements are important. Knowing how to hold your tongue and knowing how to actually speak to people and talk to people and have conversations, have hard conversations, have fun conversations, have needful conversations. So I think that's important, Pastor Will. So let's get into just a few slides tonight. That sound okay, Pastor Will?
Hey, that sounds perfect to me.
All right, excellent. Okay, I'm going to share my screen in just a second. And while I'm doing that, think about some challenges you've had in relationships with talking to people. And tonight, bring that context in so we can actually have a conversation about maybe some challenges you have had, your ex-boyfriend, your ex-girlfriend. We don't look back in the past that often, but guess what? The past does teach you something. Okay, the past will teach you some things about, some areas that you may have been challenged in, or maybe even some areas where you thought that it was the other person, but actually it was you. Okay, it wasn't me. Okay, you know that one on the commercial. Oh, it wasn't me, but actually it was you. You just didn't know it. Okay, let's get into it. So do you hear what I hear? The importance of hearing the same thing. Let's get into the Bible right quick. So Proverbs 19 and 11 says, an understanding person demonstrates patience. For mercy means holding your tongue. When you are insulted, be quick to forgive and forget it. For you are virtuous when you overlook an offense. Okay. Now, what does this have to do with feedback? A whole lot. Because feedback is not just about having a conversation. Feedback is about where the feedback is coming from. That's where we want to start tonight. Where is your feedback coming from? Is it a place of offense and hostility? You already prejudged the person before you could even get a feedback. You already know how they're going to respond. You already angry. So when we're talking about feedback, it takes, number one, an understanding person.
Yeah, you touched on something in your statement about we already have a precondition or a response based on how we think they're going to respond, right? And how we think they're going to respond many times comes about because we received that response before.
Yeah.
Maybe not from that person, but from somebody else. And so you're placing we could be dangerously loose, dangerously placing our past experience on another person, right?
Yeah.
The last person you was with could have been a really mean and angry person.
Sure.
And this person is just as nice and sweet as they could be. But based on the response that your past experience had, you putting that response on this person and not giving them a chance to respond.
Yes. Right? Yes.
So, but I'm going to say that, but then I'm going to say this. But if you put the same thing on a past person that you put on a new person, then we might have to check you a little bit to say, hey, what you bringing to the table that's generating this response that you think you looking for, that you think is going to happen.
The continual response. What is bringing that same thing?
What is this cycle we in right now?
Yeah. What is it? Yeah. And so, I think that it's important, Pastor Will, when we're talking about feedback, when we talk about an understanding person, or in some translations, it's a wise person, understands that you can hold your tongue, but also understanding that overlooking offenses is an important part of feedback too. Because if I'm already coming in defensive, angry, mad at the person, I'm going to have a hard time getting feedback. So the purpose of this slide is, it matters where you start. Let's keep going. So in feedback, you have two things. In feedback. You have receivers and you have senders. Okay. You have receivers and you have senders. Those are the only two people in a feedback scenario. Okay. So when you are the sender, you're the person that's giving the information. You are giving feedback. When you are the receiver, you're the person that is, as it states, receiving or getting the feedback, right? And so let's talk about this a little bit. Yes, it matters where you start. That's our first point tonight. Is how do you balance this thing of sending and receiving? And I think we could start with us. I think it's a good example for tonight, Pastor Will, because we've been at this for 21 years now. Dating and marriage for 21 years now.
20 years.
Yes. 21 years. It's 2021. We've been at this for 21 years now. And I would say that, we both have to play this role quite often, the sender and the receiver. How do you balance this sending and receiving and keep a good relationship? Because feedback sometimes is what destroys relationships, because people have misunderstandings. They don't hear what the other person is saying.
For me to be I feel like, I don't want to, not sounding prideful in this, I always felt like I've been a good receiver, right? But I haven't been a good sender.
Okay.
Right. I think I'm still learning the sender part. But I found out that the more I was willing to learn who you are, to talk about, your past experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And understanding how you receive information, how you receive feedback, understanding how you send information and how you send feedback, understanding your communication, understanding the words you use, the reflection of your voice, or the whatever the tone of your voice. Inflection, yeah. Learning all those things about you. Now, it didn't take 21 years to learn, but it started. It started when we were dating, in our conversations. Just learning you, and wanting to understand you, which helped form our communication. And it's not a communication, I would never say you and I are at a point where, you can finish the sentence where I start at. That's not us.
No.
We don't start and stop each other's sentences, right?
No.
But however, we do have a good understanding and a good knowing of where we're coming from. And when we speak, the place that we are speaking from.
Yeah, I think that's great what you said, Pastor Will, about learning and understanding the person is an important step in feedback, because then you learn what kind of feedback, you learn their communication style, right? Learning their communication style, two things. You learn their communication style, and you're also getting to know the person, the person themselves, the things they value, the things they like. So I think, that's a great point about feedback, is getting to know the person's communication style, being open to getting to know the person's communication style, because that will allow you to know. Sometimes I know when you get tired. I mean, when you get tired, you start talking a lot. Okay, so I know, like, some of the things you say at that time just gonna be for fun, right? I don't take that too serious, because I know you, right? Instead of getting all like into that and everything, I already know you just tired, right? And I think that is understanding the person, getting to know the person. Other thing I would say about feedback, I'm just gonna put that up here on tonight. I think another thing too about receiving and sending is understanding that this is a key part of relationships. That if you really want to grow in your relationship with each other, there has to be some sending and receiving happening.
Right. Everything is an offense and feedback.
Yes. Feedback is not always negative. Feedback is positive. And this is something that I really struggle with people at work with, of like, you guys, you got to give positive feedback. You got to give hard feedback so people can actually grow. Feedback is a part of growth, you guys.
You know, one thing I had to learn, Pastor E, like feedback in like text or emails, I had to learn how to take my voice out of text and email and just read it for what it is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when I read it in my voice, I hear the anger or hate behind it that may not be displayed, because email does not have a tone.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't have a sound. It's just words written on a white background.
Right.
So, so I had to learn how to remove the voice and get to the point of the feedback that they're trying to convey, so that I can approach it with my feedback. Right?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah,
I mean, unless you have emojis and you using all caps and exclamation marks.
Look, I have people at work that use caps, and it don't mean nothing. They just
no, when somebody's shouting at you. You know, when they put the big NO, that means no. So
sometimes.
Okay.
It doesn't have a voice, right? It's just like you stated, maybe it was an accident. You don't know until you get feedback. That's the point of tonight. You do not know until you get feedback, until you have a conversation, right?
True. That's true. I ran into that. That's true.
Yeah. And, I think that as we talk about communication, one of the things that, as we talk about this, one of the things that really can ruin relationships is, not just the lack of feedback, but also the space that lack of feedback brings for misunderstandings. Like, I know people who, quit their job, left their spouse, all over misunderstandings. When listening to both people talk, I'm like, if y'all would have actually just had the conversation, you would have gotten like feedback to understand what the person really meant, right? And going back to our scripture, that's why it says an understanding person demonstrates patience, because it takes patience to really get the feedback that's necessary. It takes patience to have a conversation instead of making assumptions. Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to calm down.
Calm down.
You got to calm down. You got to hear the information, and then you got to go somewhere and calm down, and then come back. I think that's one thing that you learned about me, that you learned how to table the conversation with me.
Oh yeah.
Like, no, let's table this for right now. Let's come back to it, because if we jump in it now, the feedback is going to be
hot.
So it's going to be intense. It's going to be intense. So let's table it. Let me process it. You process it a little bit more, and then we come back, because you know what? The floor isn't collapsing right now.
Yeah.
Right now, the floor will collapse if we don't. The floor will collapse.
Yeah.
If we don't confront it. But right now, we got some time to get out of it, think about it, and come back to it.
Yeah. Before we get off this slide, one other thing I like to say, Pastor Will, about being a sender, even in the workplace or different places, it is about knowing your audience, right? And so knowing, like we talked about, knowing the person that you're talking to, but then also as a receiver, it's about, we talked about where you starting with the best intentions, right? Starting from the place of, I want to understand you. I want to get clarity from you. I want, to be on the same page as you, right? I want to be on the same page. And I find that when I'm having a conversation with a person that we're supposed to be either understanding each other or they're trying to give me understanding, and I'm not active in that conversation, I'm not being an active listener, then I'm doing a disservice to that person that I am in communication with, right? And Pastor Willie is trying to convey something to me, convey his heart to me, and I do not give any feedback. I do not respond to Pastor Willie in a way that lets him know that not only did I hear him, but I understood him. Okay, I heard you and I understand. Even if I don't agree, I can understand this is your point of view, it's not mine. And that takes wisdom, that takes maturity to be able to say, I understand you, I hear you, and I understand you, that this is your experience, right? I understand that this is your experience you're having, and we're having different experiences right now. And that's okay, because feedback is not my time to give you necessarily. When we're talking about giving feedback, having a conversation where we both are communicating with each other, it's not my time to tell you necessarily how to fix it or whatever the thing is. But sometimes it's for me to just listen if I am being the receiver, okay? Because I'm not the sender at that moment. So knowing your role is important in communication. Know your role. Are you being the receiver at that time, or are you being the sender at that time? Okay. And that when somebody initiates feedback and they are being the sender, and then you take on the role as the receiver, embrace that role as a receiver. Don't get into sending mode. Okay. That they have initiated feedback, and then you start firing off to be a sender. So that means that you didn't hear and understand the other person, which can lead to misunderstanding, which can lead to offense, which can lead to a bad dialogue. Because now, instead of having a conversation with each other, we're talking at each other. Okay? And so this is very important to understand your role. If somebody is starting feedback with you as the sender and you're the receiver, know your role in that part of the conversation. Okay? Know your role. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay? So we have different types of feedback. We have constructive feedback, poor feedback, and effective feedback. Okay. And so constructive feedback, as most of you may know, can be both of a positive and a negative nature. That positive feedback is a lot easier to give when the person who is receiving is willing to receive. And so one of the things that, as Pastor Willie stated, I learned in conversating with Pastor Will is that he's not always in a space to have a dialogue. Okay, he's more introverted than I am. I'm very, I've already thought about this 10, 12, 30, 55 times. Okay, I've already been thinking and processing where he's just coming to the party, right? And so because he's just coming to the party, he needs time to process. And so constructive feedback or positive constructive feedback is easier when the person is open and willing to receive. And sometimes, as Pastor Will said, table this, let's come back to it later. Let's come back to it tomorrow or whatever it is, so we both can simmer down and be willing to receive the feedback that you're going to give. The other part of this too is when you have to address something, this still under constructive, when you have to give something confront something negative with someone. There's a negative topic that you need to discuss with your partner, with the person you're dating, with the person you're married to. There's something that needs to come up, right? And it can still be handled constructively, even when it's something negative, okay? It doesn't mean that you have to communicate with a negative tone or get, loud or any of those things. It just means that you need to understand how to have that conversation about something negative in a way that still strengthens and builds your relationship, right? So both people have to be open to that kind of feedback, even if it's about something negative, even if we have to talk about, your stinking attitude, being married and being around people all the time, you know, some days you just not 100. Okay, you're acting out, right? And that needs feedback. Right? That needs feedback because number one, we ain't all about to be walking around eggshells around this house, walking around on eggshells because you having a rotten day. Okay, because that's control. Okay. Okay. And so that needs some constructive feedback. I have noticed, okay, I statements are important. Not about the other person. I have noticed that something's happening with you. I have noticed that you got something going on. Okay. And I just want to say that right now it's making me feel like I can't really be myself in this atmosphere. Like I can't really be myself in this environment. That's constructive feedback, right? If somebody is acting out within the relationship, they got an attitude, they acting out and they got all this stuff going on. You have to be able to give constructive feedback about, look, it's I statements. It's not saying like, oh, you know, you just so this, you so no, it's I, right? I am feeling like, you know, I can see that something's happening with you. I would love to discuss it because right now I feel uncomfortable in the relationship. I feel like I had to walk around on eggshells. And that gives the receiver an opportunity to say, yes, I have something going on. Yes, I need some space right now. Yes, I need to go take a drive. Whatever it is, gives the opportunity for feedback. Right,
Yeah.
Pastor Bill?
Yeah, that's right. Constructive feedback is good. It's what like they say, what chicken soup is good for your soul.
Yeah.
Constructive feedback is really good and is really key into maintaining a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Because you know when we come into a relationship, it's not only we just loving each other, but we also making each other better.
Yes, we're growing each other.
We're growing each other. We're helping each other grow. And constructive feedback really helps this process and help our growth process. Yeah, so I'll leave it there.
Yeah. I think, you know, when we let's get into some poor feedback. You know, poor feedback is when we start focusing on a person's character. In other words, we start getting into, you know, what we disapprove of or talking about that person's personality in a way that's negative, like a personal attack. That is poor feedback, right? Because we always want to start constructive feedback with how it makes you feel, you know, and how it makes you feel, not necessarily what you feel like that means about that person. In other words, you can't say to them that, all these dishes in the sink, you just a slob, you nasty. Okay, because that's poor feedback. You know, the other way to frame that in a constructive way would be like, I feel overwhelmed by all of the chores in this house. Would you help me do the dishes this evening? Can you help me find a solution to help the house stay more tidy? That's constructive feedback. Poor feedback is when we start attacking the person. Okay. We start attacking the person, that becomes poor feedback. Another part of poor feedback is when we start bringing up the past. Okay. When we start bringing up problems from the past, that is poor feedback. Because now, instead of sticking with what's happening in the present, we start bringing in all of the elements of what you did, when you did it, how you did it. That's poor feedback.
So like this poor feedback, I'm gonna just pause right here, E, because you know there's this thing, and I'm sure many of you heard it before, about a transfer of energy, right? Poor feedback can go to that. Like, so you mad, they mad, or you mad, they all happy, and so you transfer your anger so you can be happy and they can be mad, right? And so like that transfer of energy, because you feeling like now you got where I was at because for something you didn't do or whatever, so you didn't do the dishes, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do the dishes, and while I'm doing the dishes, or after I do the dishes, I'm going to do something that makes you upset. and now you're gonna be mad, and I'm gonna go away happy.
Yeah, because now I have given you, transfer over to you my negativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor feedback. Yes.
Poor feedback.
Yeah, I want to give you what's on me.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and if we was at church today, I would say demonic, but we not. So I'm gonna leave that to be. But definitely, when you start to transfer something negative to someone because you want them to be miserable because you're miserable, right? That's poor feedback.
That's poor feedback.
That's poor feedback. Yes. Then we have effective feedback, right? And so feedback can be both constructive and effective. And so when you have effective feedback, that's your ability to build strong communication skills with your partner by understanding them, but also giving feedback in a way that makes your relationship stronger. That's effective feedback. Okay.
And let me go back and say this too. When you notice you have poor feedback,
yeah,
go back and apologize.
That's right. Apologize because you're nasty.
And then get constructive.
Yeah, get constructive and get effective.
I'm sorry for the way that turned out. I'm sorry for the way that went. But this is what happened.
Because let me help you with something. Nobody gonna just keep excusing your poor behavior.
Right.
That's it. Nobody wants to be around someone who is always negative. You guys, that as we talked about last week, that's one of the number one reasons why people don't stay together. Because they get tired of people being nasty and stinking.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. Negativity is exhausting.
It's very exhausting.
So you have to go deal with that. If you need to go to counseling, if you need healing, whatever's underneath that's making you dirty, nasty, stinking, you got to go deal with those things so you can bring your best self to your relationships.
Yeah.
And you know, Pastor Will, I had to learn this before me and you. Because when I lived with my best friend for 4.5 years, I'm going to tell you right now that, you know, we definitely had a lot of feedback. Okay, we were, you know, changing jobs, going into relationships. We was, you know, paying bills together. We were, you know, for all intents and purposes, we were building a relationship with each other while building our lives at the same time. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I had to learn, like, it's just not okay. It's not okay for, you know, me to be slamming doors and acting crazy, and it's not okay for you to be shutting down and driving off. Like, either one of those things, neither is okay, right? And that's any relationship. You have to learn how to move to a different space of being a person that brings your best self to the relationship. Because it's not okay. And that, you know, it's not only not okay, but it becomes destructive to the relationship you're building. Now, with poor feedback, you begin to tear down something that you should be building up.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Poor feedback. Yeah.
Poor feedback.
Yeah, that's good, Pastor Will. Because I find this at work too. Let me get on this for a minute, because now you brought me back to poor feedback. One of the things that happened too with poor feedback, when I find that work with supervisors, is if you give somebody poor feedback and they think that they're doing a good job, and then they get to the evaluation, and you then want to tell them, no, you're not doing a good job. Okay. And this is why you're not doing a good job. Well, what happened to my feedback all year round? Because the person was afraid to have the hard conversations. And that's what happens in relationships as well, is that the person is now ready for it to be over. They don't want to deal with somebody no more. They over it. I'm over this relationship. But they never gave feedback during the course of the relationship. The person don't even know what they did wrong. Okay, the person don't even know what happened, what went wrong, because you spent the whole year not communicating, and now you mad and ready to get out the relationship, but you wasn't talking. You wasn't giving no feedback.
Yeah.
How can somebody know something you won't communicate?
Yeah, you know, since we do like to talk about business, we haven't had a good career discussion in a long time, but I think that's one of my pet peeves when people leave the job. They leave, and then towards when they leave and after they leave, then they're going to talk bad about the job as if they could not talk about it while they were in the job, right? So now they got all this feedback after they out the door. But where were you when you were involved in the culture? You were part of the culture and you had a voice in the culture.
Yeah, we were asking you questions to find out how to make a more effective culture. We were asking you questions, and I think that's another thing in a relationship is like when you don't value feedback and having the constructive conversations, what happens is, as Pastor Willie's saying, it's like now you lead a relationship, now you want to talk dirt dog about somebody. When actually you the dirt dog because you're the person that wasn't willing to have the feedback conversation.
You stay silent.
You stayed silent. Yeah. And it hurt you, but most of all, it hurt the relationship.
Yeah.
So effective feedback is not positive or negative. It's having the right conversations.
Yeah.
Effective feedback is your ability to have the right conversations. I know a lot of times conversations that we had, Pastor Will, like, why are we having these conversations? Why we gotta talk about this? But I know that they are the right conversations because they are about our future. There are things that can affect us either negatively in the future or positively in the future. So we need to talk about it. So effective communication is not positive or negative. It's having the right conversation. Okay? The right conversation at the right time. I see questions come up.
No, and I'm gonna say no, Kim. Choosing your battles is not the right way to think.
Yeah, because choosing your battles also can be another way of avoidance. Choosing your battles can become a way of avoidance, right? I think the better strategy.
Kim doing like this because she typing. She typing. Now I can see it. I can. Going for it.
The better strategy than choose your battle, the better strategy is find the right way to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes for me and Pastor Will, the choose your battle type of deal was that we're going to have this conversation, but sometimes it is going to be a text message or email because it's better to allow the person time to read the message, right? Now I guess I'll say it in this way. Choose your battle is like, don't fight and nitpick over everything. From that perspective, yes, right? It's like everything doesn't have to be a battle. That I agree with. But as it relates to feedback and communication, we need to be having, we need to be having the conversations. All conversations are worth the conversation, basically. Yes, that is true. You need to have the conversation.
See, but and here's the thing about the battle. Some battles are just yours. It's not even the other person's.
That's correct.
It's just a battle you got going on in your own mind you need some resolution with. It's not even a battle. You just need a resolution.
Yes,
and I think whatever it is.
And I think that in that effective feedback, you can actually have a conversation of feedback with the person that admits that. Of like, I'm not looking for you to bring a solution to this, but I do need to talk it out.
Yeah.
Because if you're extroverted like I am, I need those moments to just get it out. Okay. I need those moments to just get it out, right? I need the moment to just get it out. And I need you as the sender to just listen to what I'm saying. Let me get it all out. I don't really necessarily need your feedback necessarily. Because this is my battle I got going on within. That's true.
Kim, I'm like, I could be your Tabitha Brown. Girl, I love you, girl. And you just have a blessed day. You just gotta learn how to communicate, have all these types of feedback.
Yeah.
Constructive feedback. And
yeah,
be blessed. Have a blessed day, girl. You go ahead now.
let's get on that though, Pastor Will, because you know, Tabitha Brown wasn't giving feedback to Wendy Williams to build a relationship.
Right.
So when we're talking about feedback, let's just be very clear that we're talking about feedback in someone that you're building a relationship with. Because if you go around Tabitha Brown and people that you're supposed to be building a relationship with, you can forget that it's a no. Right? Yes, it was shade. Yeah. And no one wants to have a conversation like that, not if we're building a relationship. Okay, so it was a release to her, and it was something that she needed to do from a public stage, but it was not effective feedback in having a conversation on a two-way. Right? Yeah. Is that right, Pastor Will?
No, that's true. It was it wasn't shots.
It was a response. It was a
response.
Yes, it was not feedback. It was a response.
It was response.
Yes. Absolutely. And so I think that's important. Understanding what feedback is. Feedback, if you remember my slide, feedback takes a receiver, and a sender. Okay, a receiver and a sender. And so that's an important part of this dialogue we have it. Okay, so let me give you some real quick elements of the communication process. Let me get this to you right quick. I'm gonna give you which one I'm gonna give you right quick. I'm gonna give you this one. I'm gonna give you this one. I'm actually remove this and just give it to you. So part of what we are doing as it relates to feedback is have the conversation with yourself first.
Yeah.
That's an important element of feedback.
True.
Because sometimes when you talk to yourself, you be like, I sound crazy. Okay? It's true. Like you don't get into necessarily, as Kim said, choosing your battles, but more so you start to hear yourself and hear that you just you got a lot going on with you. So that can also bring you into a space where you're giving different feedback now because you realize it has nothing to do with the other person. It's you. You crazy today. Okay?
Yeah.
That's all right. Okay? It's okay to see that. You look crazy today. You got something going on with you. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the homeowner association when you said that, because I've had to have conversations with myself so I won't get on Nextdoor or Town Square and start typing.
That's correct.
And start giving feedback from a place of anger and offense, right? And so I really stopped responding to a lot of the crazy stuff that people are saying right now concerning this community. But, my thought is to, continue to build relationships, continue to build community with each other so that, we can live in a safe, neighborly environment where we are watching each other backs. Because if we don't have this in a relationship, if we don't have this safe communal relationship that we could have positive feedback, eventually we're going to stop watching each other back. Yeah. We're going to lose respect for each other.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that we're just going to allow to happen because the respect is gone.
Yeah. One of the things too is like many of us grew up in dysfunctional communication environments.
True.
And so you also got to realize where some of your dysfunction as it relates to communication really came from how you grew up. And I think it's being honest and okay with that. That was one of the conversations that we had early on in our marriage, Pastor Will, about, some of the dysfunction that really came from the way we saw or perceived relationships. Doesn't even mean it's the way it was. It maybe was your perception because you was a child. You were immature, okay? And or you were told things like, you know, children stay over there, children don't do this, children don't do that. So you never learn how to send and receive feedback. That's true, Pastor Will.
Yeah.
You never learned. And that's one of the things that I really value with my kids. I wanted to do differently. I wanted to allow them to talk. Okay. I wanted to have conversations with them. I do. I started that at a young age. I wanted to have conversations with them because I wanted them to understand what it was to give feedback and receive it. Right. And that's sometimes asking them, how am I doing as a mom? You know, how am I doing as a mom? How do you think this is going? How do you think that is going? That gives them the opportunity to give feedback, right? In a safe and healthy environment. So I would say in your relationship, make sure you're building a safe and healthy environment for feedback. Because people won't feel comfortable giving you feedback or receiving feedback from you if the first thing you're going to do is, you know, run off and go tell somebody else what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to go tell somebody now something negative about your spouse or your best friend or whoever, instead of talking it through with that person. Right?
Yeah. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, well, all the time, what I learned is that effective feedback really takes the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Effective feedback takes the Holy Spirit because he know how to tame your tongue.
Oh, yes.
He know how to tame my tongue. And when he speaks, everybody is well.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what I learned about really effective feedback is, you know, God, I need you. I don't need your help. I need you. You know,
yeah.
I don't need my will or my wants, my desires to get in any of this. I need you.
Yeah.
You know,
and
we
you know
always
what?
say, you know, we all and I'm careful about saying, God, I need help. I don't need help. I need you.
I need you.
I need you to do this.
Bring clarity. I need you to do it.
Yes.
Come in the room. I need you.
I need all of you and none of me because I'm about to mess this joint up.
Oh, yes. And I love those moments when we have really blew the whole thing up. And we have. When you and I have blew the whole marriage up acting crazy. And we decided to go apart and pray. And when we came back to the room, we was changed. Okay, not things was changed. We was changed. You know, and I find too, Pastor Will, that people that don't like communicating, people that don't like the, you know, the feedback and the giving and the receiving, you know, often are people that have problems with themselves. That's what it's really about, right? It's really about, you know, I'm having a problem with me. And so I then now have a problem with everything you say, how you say it, when you say it. All of those things are deflections. That's why we got to be healed and whole going into this. We need God. Yeah. We got to be healed and whole going into these relationships because you think that somebody else the problem. And I'm so sorry to tell you tonight, it be you. It be you. Okay, that's what in relationships, that's what you got to see. Look, it's me, oh Lord. Stand in me to prayer.
God uses people to fine tune you.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes we fight. Ouch. Woo.
You did that. I heard that up down here.
Dude, that was my knee.
No.
Okay. All right. Man, I got to get rid of this desk. Woo. Okay. So sometimes God used your desk to tune you too. No, sometimes God uses people to fine tune you.
Oh, yeah.
In a way because he uses people to not for you to rebuke all the time, but to cause a little friction to sharpen you because iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
And I was telling Michelle this before. The sharpening process isn't the iron sharpening iron is friction. And sometimes you get sharpened by that friction.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. how do you respond to the friction?
How do you respond to friction?
You just can't walk away from it. But you got to want to become sharpened.
Yes. Yes.
In your relationship building, you have to want to become better, become sharper in it. But it won't happen. Sometimes it won't happen without that friction.
Yeah. Effective the effective feedback skills and learning how to deal with friction, learning how to respond to friction and being sharpened goes with you everywhere, y'all. To work. I mean, it goes everywhere. The relationship you're going to have with your kids. I mean, like, it goes into every element, not just the relationship that you're going to have with your spouse or the person you're dating. It goes into every relationship. Having these skills makes you a better you, but also makes your environments better, gives you the ability to build things, not just tear them down. Or not just go through the la of it, but it never really grows you. Okay, you the same nasty person you was when you came in, same person you was when you came out, right? You came into that job one way, you left that job the same way, right? It's just, it never, you never are sharpened or grow unless you allow yourself to learn effective communication. And that's what we're talking about in this series, effective communication.
Effective communication.
Effective communication. Yes, that's feedback tonight, Pastor Will. That's awesome. Feedback. It's an important element of relationship.
Cool. Yes.
We got to do it, y'all. We got to
do it.
We got to be the receiver and the sender of feedback. We have to do it. You can't just clam up and don't say how you feel. Okay, you can't just do that. Okay, you can't just clam up and say how you feel, and you can't just be undertoning all the time. For real, I don't know about that. All of that is ignorance that keeps you in a box of never growing. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. You know, I'll share this one last thing, Pastor Will. You know, a lot of people have issues with my boss at work. Okay, a lot of people have issues, right? Let me say what I learned about this is that the person, when I'm having a conversation with the person, I'm not trying to change the person. I'm learning how to effectively communicate with who they are.
Right.
Okay. I'm never going to try to change him because he is who he is. But instead, I have learned the way to effectively communicate, and that has allowed our relationship to grow. That has allowed our work relationship to grow and our personal relationship to grow. We can talk about things personally with one another because we have learned the art of communication. You're not trying to change people and make them communicate like you. You're receiving who they are and the effective way to communicate them because of who they are.
You know, because, you know, I think, you know, one of the stories or the taglines that's been in your office was like, oh, the boss didn't do this before you got here, but now you do this. He has changed.
That's correct.
You know, and yeah, you got to know when the Holy Spirit at work, and you have to know that you're not going to change anybody. E didn't change Will. Will didn't change E, but the Holy Spirit did.
Yeah, through our relationship, we changed.
Exactly.
The relationship was used to bring change, yes. Individual change. We grew.
And needed change.
Yes, needed change. I needed to grow in some areas.
I needed to grow in areas.
I needed to learn to be quiet. Hallelujah.
Yes.
And I needed to learn to listen.
And I needed to learn how to speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Will. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Bessie.
Yeah, you grew me. Grew me in some great ways. I appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure.
It was rough. Some of that feedback was rough, but it was good.
Yes.
We grew.
We grew.
Yes. Love you guys. This was amazing tonight. I love these communication conversations. I love it.
She's having a ball. She's having a ball.
Yes, communication is my element. It's one space where I think that the world would be a better place if we all just knew how to talk to each other. Come to some understanding. Love, love, love each other. Yes.
What I need from you is understanding.
Child, here we go, y'all. It's getting late. That's the wheel. Why you don't know no words? So simple as 1, 2, 3. Understanding is what we need. Anyhow, now you got me singing it. Yes.
Hey, look.
Get your feedback going, you guys.
Get your feedback going.
Start with understanding. Start in the place of understanding. Yes.
I love all of y'all. Thanks for hanging in here with us tonight.
Yeah.
It was a
Learn
fast
effective
hour.
feedback. Learn effective feedback so you can have some good relationships. Yes, yes, and yes.
I own the rights to this. Well, I'm co-owner of the rights to this music. All right. See y'all later.
Bye.
Go.